McCutcheon, and I'm one of your hosts for this event, Ce-2. This event has been going on since 2015. We started the iLab, then we went online for a couple years, for fun, and now we're here, which we're very grateful. I wanted to thank the Code Building for, hosting this event. We really appreciate it. It's a great space. So what we do is we have two speakers every month. We have a early stage entrepreneur that shares about their company, this one for today, and they're actually going to have an ask for the audience. We're going to have you help them solve barriers to growth. And then the second speaker we have is a more seasoned entrepreneur that shares their crash and learn stories. So just their entrepreneurial journey is always fascinating. Doesn't matter your industry, you'll always have takeaways from that. This event is put on by a number of organizations. First, CVIC, Charlottesville Business Innovation Council, CIC, Community Investment Collaborative, the SBDC, which is the Small Business Development Center, and then we are sponsored by the Batten Institute, AUVA, and also Whiteworks Design. So a lot of great organizations come together to put this event on. We're the third Tuesday of every month except for December. Take December off. If you come, you'll be by yourself. You can practice. It's good to go. But I'm going to go ahead and we'll just jump right in and introduce our first speaker. So I want to introduce Freddie Jackson and his foundation, Love No Ego, or the Love No Ego Foundation, is a nonprofit here in Charlottesville that provides real-world development for youth and young adults aged 10 to 24. A little bit about Freddie, though, fascinating individual. We bumped into each other around town several times for some of the work that he's doing in the schools, but he's a professional speaker, he's a mentor, he's a professional trainer, an educator, an author, and founder of this organization. He actually grew up in the area in Buckingham, went to Point Park University, got his bachelor's in journalism and radio broadcasting, also played basketball, was a collegiate athlete. He also got his master's in psychology and then also got his master's in organizational development and leadership. He was a music artist in Hollywood for a period of time. He actually still gets paid on some of the work that he did out there, including some ads and music, which is cool. He's also formerly a counselor, life skills coach, case manager, and is currently an educator in the Alamo County school systems and still personal training. His book is called Love No Ego, Where Are You Living From? And he's got another book launching in December as well called The User's Manual by the User's Manual. But he lives here in Charlottesville with his wife. They have here 3 years ago. He's got his son Jackson, and help me welcome Freddie Jackson.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody feeling? Good, good. Thank you, Hope, for that introduction. Thank you guys for having me. Again, my name is Freddie Jackson, Buckingham boy, Buckingham guy. We call it the sticks, played in the dirt a lot. So I still practice my nature roots. I watch the sunrise every single day, including this morning. It's quite cold out there, so I'm still thawing out. But yeah, so founder of the Love No Ego Foundation. I'm excited to, of course, first be here, hear you guys' feedback. I won't say what that is. Hear you guys' feedback on my specific asks towards the end of this presentation. It's going to go really quick. Let's go. So there is the mission statement there, but in a nutshell, the Love No Ego Foundation will help youth and young adults just be their best selves, encouraging them to live from a natural love space, natural human space before they start connecting to the labels and identifications of the world. It's a personal development thing, help them go beyond their fears and limitations and really just get them excited about being themselves. And then we take that energy and connect it to their goals, their interests, and we use community resources and we connect, we want them, my whole idea behind it was for them to have a foundation within that's not easily shaken. I think you guys can contest to this, when you have that as a human being, the universe kind of delivers what you need and you move in that space. And you attract the resources that you need, they show up. You just gotta put in that effort and have a foundation within that's not shaken by the egotistical world. Our pillars, everything that we do touches on these pillars, one or more or all of them: spirituality, education, exercise, and community. Honestly, I found that those pillars, based on my experiences, I believe spirituality is a natural thing. We're spiritual creatures by nature. Not necessarily religious. You can use that tool to become a better person, but I think we're all spiritual beings. Education is not a one-time thing, never done. Just because you graduated doesn't mean you're done, right? Exercise, I'm a personal trainer. I see the benefits of that. And of course, community. Everything that we want to achieve, everything that we desire to connect with is in our community. And this is what we teach our kids. So our programs include professional speaking, workshops, mentoring, fitness and wellness training. And we also have a Love No Ego extended workshop curriculum. It's an 8-week workshop where we go into schools and we stay for 8 weeks and work with a designated amount of students. We are in Journey Middle right now, formerly Jack Jewett. We're going into Beaufort beginning of January, and we're going to finish out those 2 schools for the remainder of the school year. These are some of the mentors. We have 9 mentors right now. Altogether, the board and team is about 15 of us. We have a lot of volunteers. We use Wegmans, who is a great sponsor of ours. We use their employees. They volunteer with us. So if you want to see more about our board and team, please go to that link there, lovenoego.org/board and team. And we're also like just a team of really grounded and educated in psychology, a couple of therapists, what else? Nutritionists. Over half of us are certified personal trainers as well. So we really get into that aspect of working on the whole kid or the youth, young adult. These are some of the kids in our program. We do all sorts of community projects. We've adopted a roadway. We've adopted a couple of trails. We pick up trash. We get them out. We hold workshops up in the Blue Ridge there. You can see us on top of Humpback Rocks there. These are kids from Journey Middle. That was actually taken just last week. This one here to your bottom left. All sorts of things. You see the kids there picking up trash, some kids meditating, kids doing excuse me, bench, B-E-N-C-H, bench building, not bench building. We don't build benches, all right? Kids out on the trail, that's the Black Rock Summit, the Ravenna, but nature helps to hone in that message. You know, we all love nature. We're all a part of it. We are it. So we have to get them out there to experience it. And then we apply those pillars, we apply those principles, and they get truly excited about life, you know, the way it should be. And we call it the courage to be you. And we kind of look at that like, why does it take courage to be you? Like, why should it take such courage to be you? It should be a natural thing. So with that question, we pose that question, they're able to see like these outside influences and how they may be directing and influencing their behavior and decisions. Love, no ego. This is a park that we're building in Buckingham County. Those are the benches that the kids built out there. They planted trees. We have a community garden starting out there. We're going to have a trail around in a hammock park. All sorts of good things going on. I've always wanted to go back to Buckingham and put something there. So this is a personal as well as professional dream of mine. We're located here in Charlottesville. We don't have a brick and mortar space yet, but we're looking for that. And this location will also serve as a brick and mortar space. Our impact, you can go and check out our impact at lovenoego.org/impact. I won't get into too many numbers right now, but in 2021, we served 2,406 youth and young adults. And these numbers are based on kids in our mentoring program, which usually stay about a year. They stay about a year in our program. and professional speaking engagements. We do workshops, not just necessarily a one-time encounter with the message. These numbers are based on several repeated contacts with our message in our program. Some of our partnering organizations, Wegmans, Mentor Virginia, the YMCA, Chamber, of course, Camp for Real, Quality Electric, Reclaim Hope Initiative. They use our mentors to serve as that bridge for their kids. They do adoption internationally. So a kid might be coming here from Africa, and they use our mentors to help them get acclimated to, most often when it's a new school, new environment, new home, new everything. Great partnership with them. So to kind of summarize this up, this is a video that we made. I want you guys to take a look at it. It's about 1 minute and 20 seconds. Let's do it.
Love. See, love, we're all different, but the same. Father's back, Father's life, Father's Buddhist, Baptist, Christian, in fact, Republican, you all too, we're all the same. We're not different ones in separation. We're different communication. See, we must not allow it to destroy, we must prepare to get women to naturally, I said, love's balance, the most best domestic seems outward, and not small, strong, is true. Even slow down, feel, and this destroys, separates, blocks miracles and lessons, and brings us as humans. Love is the greatest thing ever. We cannot allow evil to come in and destroy everything that we're absolutely meant to do, be, on. Stand in love, no evil.
And moving on here, just some bullet points about myself. I also have a site called Mr. Love No Ego, which a kid in a school gave me that name. And I was like, it has a nice ring to it. So I kept it. And the corporate world even calls sometimes, and I go in and talk about ego in the workplace, how to remove some of those biases and fears and get teams performing, as well as individuals and teams performing at an optimal level. So my question, my ask is this: we're looking to scale this thing. When I asked about scaling, a lot of things come to mind: nonprofit, funding, team, board, individuals. All of our team members are volunteers right now. And also, the only paid folks on our team are the mentors. They're paid for their time and expenses. So my question is, what advice do you guys have for me pushing this mission forward on how to scale this thing? You know, my vision was to have it be a household name. When you say Michael Jordan, you know what Michael Jordan is. When you say the Beatles, you know who the Beatles are. So that's how I think. I just think kind of in those terms. So what advice do you guys have for me?
For our online participants. Freddie, can you talk about how you're funded so we can understand your funding mechanisms? And I assume that this is a 501c3, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, great. Can you talk about your funding?
Yeah, so we have funding, of course, through grants, through partnerships, through the city. Grants, sponsorships, individuals and businesses are able to sponsor a mentee and pay for, let's start at this 12-session package, which will last them 3 months, at least a 1.5-hour session every week. So we have those happening. We have grants, sponsorships, individual donors just randomly. I think we average maybe about 15,000, which is low, but still great, just randomly per year. So those are our three main ways. And those partnerships that we have, like I explained with Reclaim Hope Initiative, those are extra revenue streams as well. And the speaking, I can go and speak to an organization, they make a $5,000 contribution, boom, it goes right into the nonprofit.
So Freddie, you have built, you talked about scaling, so we're gonna address that. You've built a brand, okay, and that I think is what you're talking about a household name. So, and it's a self-contained message in your brand. So you have that going for you, and you also have a brand that is probably highly sought after today because of communities are hurting and community as a whole is hurting. So you have an opportunity here, and I think, like any brand, I think you may want to be very, very careful, but you want to maybe connect that to someone who has a national profile, an influencer of some kind, or an organization that wants to drive you, and then be very careful about taking it exactly how you're doing it here to other communities, to other school districts, whatever it is that you focus on. But I think you just have to think of it as a brand and then port that to these different communities. So I think your model will work as long as you retain the kind of culture that you've developed with this one. That's the big danger. If you can do that, I think you can it's a natural thing to leverage because you've already done the work of creating this brand.
Thank you.
All right, who else has thoughts for?
I don't remember the name of the organization, but there's lots of organizations that work with potentially troubled youths, but also foster children. I have a good friend who she does fundraising for the statewide foster organization. I wonder if you can become a part of their offerings or like help them do the work that they need to do and get funding through them. If you can tuck yourself into some of these to help grow and scale.
Yeah, great point, because the city of Charlottesville, we are a vendor with Department of Social Services, as well as Albemarle County. And they use us randomly for a kid on case or two here and there. So yeah, just kind of broaden that a little bit more. Thank you.
Hey, Freddie, my name is Jim. Thank you for what you've done so far. Two questions for you. One is just a clarification. If you went back to the numbers on the slide, and specifically what I'm interested in is you've got a really huge amount of times that you touch people via your motivational speaking. And then I see 28 mentor serve. I assume for each of that means that that's actually times 12. So you had hundreds of mentoring sessions, or?
That's actually 28 that we serve for that year because they will stay with our program like throughout the course of a year. Some have been with us almost 2 years now. So in 2021, in the mentoring program specifically, you served 28 kids.
Okay, so it's a lot of sessions of mentoring, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yes.
If you feel, so the first question is, what comes across is the core, as you said, the core is, I've created a very effective mentoring mechanism to help people in different communities. Is that fair to say that if you were to think of yourself as other peer organizations, you look at yourself at the root as a transformative mentoring organization?
Yes.
Okay. Because I feel like when you think about what you scale with, you also have to focus on scaling that which is the most important to you. In this case, I feel like while motivational speaking is valuable, it's the mentoring that has an impact. So I guess my one piece of feedback would be around that. It's focused on being the best mentoring organization. The second question is, you talk a little bit, because they've got an interesting,
Yeah.
mission. Can you talk about how you,
Yeah.
this organization?
So me and Carolyn, the executive director of Wild Rock, we met as she was starting, I was starting around the same time. We met over at Riverview and took a walk and just talk. And we just hit it off from the start. So we've been partnering. I use Wild Rock. I go out there. They might use me to come out and inspire some kids, lead a workshop. We take kids out there. We spend the whole day, get them out in nature, apply that love and we go curriculum and programming. We've had board retreats there. We take the team members out. We're always in communication with one another, supporting each other through funding, through grant opportunities, just relationship building and having that pulse on the community collectively is what Wild Rock and Carolyn reminds me of and reminds us to do.
So my question, as you look at this, you have this supply demand imbalance. So where's your constraint? I assume your constraint is not the demand for your services or for the services, it's the supply of resources. So as a competitive advantage to scale, you're going to have to figure out how to be really good at and be better at all these other things that are competing for the dollar and the resource to scale. Because otherwise, unfortunately, what ends up happening with these incredible causes that are so critical is they die within a year. They die within 2 years. Or worse, they die within 7 years because they're taking a slow death and they're spreading the dollars out. Versus if some of these would go away, you could put more dollars on the one that lives. So the part I would challenge you to think about scale is, how can you really be great at attracting those dollars and those resources? Which to do that is all about the movement. You talk about a mission. A mission is great, and you can look at the words, and everybody looks at the words and goes, yes, 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 yes. But I'll show you 20 others, 100 others that everybody goes, yes, 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 yes. I can say the word autism. I could say neurodegenerative disorders. I could see you go down and down to what's personal. So the challenge I would give you is to attract the dollars and be competitive advantage. Can you find enough people that want to go on the journey with you and really articulate that in a way that they see this as a journey and as a movement, not as a mission? I want to be along for the ride, and because I'm going to give you time, I'm going to give you dollars, I'm going to give you resources, because if not, they're just going to get pulled and it's going to be a peanut butter strategy. All this great stuff will do some good, and don't get me wrong, that's great. But if you want to scale, which is your original question or statement is, it's not about helping one, what is scale? Is scale in Charlottesville? Is scale national? Is it global? And to do that, you got to get people along for the movement, not the mission. So I challenge you to articulate that. And one of the ways that I've seen to do that is through the heart, not the head. So when you show your slides and things like that, which are obviously critical once you get to the head side, the heart is all about, I want to see more kids. I want to see people that you're helping, and people go, I see myself in that. I wish somebody had done this for me. That's going to get your movement versus the words, versus even the picture. You need to bring the emotion into it to connect, to create the movement, which will get you the dollars.
Thank you.
Freddie, I've been watching the organization for a couple of years since my kids participated since a couple of years ago. But what I always think about is when I think of Love No Legal, I think of you. You are right. You have a lot of experience with media, public speaking. What as part of your scaling strategy, how are you taking social media into play? Are you building a large following on YouTube? How are you if you're thinking about scale, I think you have a natural talent to reach people. And now you need to use the tools to reach people at a broader scale. Use your voice. I like the idea of that, showing more of the kids that are making an impact with. When you start seeing people following you from California, Seattle, Minneapolis, you're going to get people reaching out to you saying, I want to bring this to my town. I want to do this here. And I think that's when you're going to start seeing the opportunities to scale. So that's just my advice, is build your following beyond Charlottesville, because I know you have the talent to do it.
Thank you. And we are on social media. We lost our social media specialist a few months ago, so when you're looking at it, and it's just so many, and I struggle. I go back and forth. Which one should I focus on one? Should I post across all platforms? So but Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Freddie. Give Freddie a hand. And, you have your contact information. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so let's go here. I'm playing. Here we go.
All right, so his email's right there, his website.
So the company, the foundation is called the Love No Ego Foundation. People see it, they just automatically say Love No Ego, you know, just to be clear.
All right,
Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, so it is my pleasure now to bring up our Crash and Learn speaker. So I want to introduce Jeff Pompeo and a little bit of background about him as I bring him up. Over the last 25 years, he's established himself as a serial entrepreneur, an angel investor, a board advisor with experience in mainly technology-driven companies across inception all the way through exit. After he attended JMU in computer information systems, he also got his MBA from Virginia Tech. And after a few years of consulting, he actually came to Charlottesville to be the CIO at GE. After that experience, he actually has taken 4 companies from inception to some form of an exit, including some FDA-regulated med techs, university spin-outs, tech company turnarounds, IoT businesses, and disruptive technology innovations. And he's now working on his 5th company, which is Caretaker Medical. He, as I mentioned, is an angel investor. He's on the board of the Virginia Private Tech Association. He, in addition to just making a big impact in these companies, he's also married for 30 years and has 4 adult children. So very excited to hear about your stories, the lessons that you've learned. So help me welcome Jeff.
Thank you, Hope. So Hope asked me to come basically do some storytelling, so no slides, but Freddie. I regret that I've never been to this event before, and it's been here since 2015. Quickly, you know, I've done 5 startups now, and I came up through a big company. And there's 3 kind of common themes I want to share for entrepreneurs that are building businesses either with your own money or other people's money. But just some context, so, you know, I grew up in the Jack Welch era of General Electric. Raise your hand if you don't know who Jack Welch is. Amazing. I do a lot of talks at UVA undergrad, university undergrad. I'm shocked with this new generation. I've never heard of Jack Welch, but he grew the world's largest company called General Electric in the 80s and 90s. And one of his tenets was about people. It's all about people, people, people. And he was so adamant about it that every year we would have to stack rank all of our people, and the bottom 10%, even if you were fantastic, the bottom 10% had to go. You had to fire them and replace them with someone else, because his tenet was you spend more time trying to make a C player a B player, and you ought to be spending that time with your A players and B players. So instead of spending time on a C player, get rid of them and spend your time making your B players A players. So that's, I grew up for 10 years under that tutelage. So, you know, quick story, my first step into, so I thought I'd be a GE guy forever, right? I moved to Charlottesville in the mid-90s to run the CIO of the GE Fanuc business that used to be the #3 employer here in Charlottesville. Now it's completely gone. It's Emerson on the north end of town. But I happened to be at a dinner at the same table with Jack Welch and John Chambers, who ran Cisco Systems back in the internet heyday. This was in the late 90s. And at that time, GE and Cisco kept changing places almost daily. Who's the largest market cap company in the world? Exxon was a distant third, right? Facebook, Apple didn't even exist hardly. So they're saying, look, we're the #1 and #2 companies in the world. How come we don't do anything together? And so, you know, here's a quick lesson, right, in terms of seizing the moment and having confidence in yourself. So I said, well, I've got a great idea. Why don't we take what GE's great at
manufacturing, industrial automation, factory management. And what Cisco's great at, internet, and remember, internet was just burgeoning. This was in the mid-90s. Routers, and let's form a joint venture company, and let's go do standards-based Ethernet, TCP/IP, internet protocols on factory floors to unlock all the information that's locked in these manufacturing machines to feed these ERP systems. They haven't figured out. I'm a tech guy, right? Long story short, they said, "Great idea, you get to run it." Right, so here I am, a 26-year-old kid. I'm the president of the joint venture, 50 million of fresh cash. Go build this business under the umbrella of a GE and a Cisco that take care of cash flow, and payroll, and HR, and all these things. So that was my first taste of entrepreneurship under the safety net of two giant parents. I did that for a number of years, and then the internet bubble, started burgeoning, and friends of mine on the West Coast were going into venture capital companies with nothing but a 10-page PowerPoint, walking out with $10 million checks to form a business. And I said, well, I want that. I'm doing all the same work of building these companies, and all I have is GE stock and a salary. I want to bet big. So I quit GE to join some other folks here in Charlottesville, and did our first startup called Broad Slate Network. My whole career has been kind of a convergence of electronics and telecom and IT, and in the last 10 years, medical devices, right? And I'm blessed to say from that point on, over the last 25 years, these 5 startups that we've launched have all been from Charlottesville. Although I did commute to California every Monday morning for a year and a half for a company going out there. But so back to the 3 things. So we started doing a series of startups. First 2 startups, we took a ton of other people's money. Major venture capital firms like Bessemer Ventures and HIG, 70, 80, $90 million. Those were our first 2 companies. The next one was sort of a turnaround company, a little bit of my own money, and a few of my friends and family money, and turned that company around. And then the next one was a university spin-out from UVA, mostly grants and a little bit of our own money. And then my last one was a complete from scratch startup, my money, and then I bring in investors. And the 3 common themes on all of these things, I've had to wrap it up in a nutshell, is number 1, plan A never works. When you set out your entrepreneurship journey, you set out your model, your plan, your product, your market, your pricing, your timing. I'll bet $1 million that the first plan will never work. So it's all about the pivot, right? It's all about pivoting to plan B, plan C, and plan D. As you learn where your assumptions were wrong when you were starting, or you face technical hurdles that are just too hard or too expensive to get around, or the climate around you changes and new technologies work that's going to disrupt you or become roadblocks to you. So it's all about being able to do that pivot. Number 1, plan A never works. Number 2, you'll never have enough money, right? You'll constantly be constrained for resources, mostly capital. And so having a plan to have multiple sources of that capital, when inevitably you're going to run out and have to make the tough decision of, do I cancel things? Do I lay people off? Do I not do these projects? And then number 3, the support of those 2 things is, back to the Jack Welch thing, it's about your people, right? Because to do the pivot, to raise the capital, you need the people that can execute that. And as your company matures from just yourself in your basement or garage, some people are not going to make that turn with you. And you've got to have, back to the Jack Welch, you've got to have sort of the gut and the staying power to make tough decisions. So I've had to fire a co-founder effectively, right? And so with that backdrop, let me just share a couple of interesting stories. So the first 2 startups, I said we raised $70 million and then $30 million on top of that. Sounds great, right? We grew to 100 people in the first 8 months. The problem with that is dilution, right? If you don't know what that word is, get very familiar with it. If you take that kind of money from other people at a valuation of it almost doesn't matter as your startup, you've given away your company. Now, it seems reasonable as you surround yourself and your board with these really bright people with deep, deep pockets that have a common vision, but inevitably visions become incongruent, right? So imagine a scenario where, you know, my three co-founders and myself now collectively own about 10% of the company, 90% is owned by financial investors. You know, 3/4 of the board seats are held by these financial investors. We're trying to execute our plan A, our vision, growing this company, hundreds of employees, right? And you know, building internet backbones and microwave all over the country and then eventually the world. That was our goal. But guess what our financial investors' goals were? An exit quick and a multiple and a return. So almost immediately, we've got a board of investors who are pushing us for an exit, a monetization, raise another round of capital so that we can get a multiple and write a great letter to our LPs. There are all these dynamics going on, and at the end of the day, they win because we didn't have the votes back to the founders. So, and then the matchmaking, right? When you get in bed with these large VCs that have large portfolios, it's amazing, you know, as a CEO or a CIO or one of the executives, how much time you spend supporting them in due diligence and looking for other companies to buy because you're sort of their indentured servant, you know, subject matter expert. So we exited those two. You know, it was a profitable exit for everybody, but not the home run that we wanted as the founders, right? So that's kind of example number one. Big dreams, big money. It's going to cost you a lot. It may or may not be worth it, but eyes wide open. The next story I want to tell you is about University spinout, right? So met up with three brilliant PhDs from UVA who had invented this and patented this really cool miniaturization technology for ultrasound imaging. And the product idea was, we called it a sonic window. It was a device about the size of your TV remote control, with a screen on it. And you just put it over top of your arm or wherever you wanted to see it. You could see 3 or 4 centimeters down into your body. And so our first use case was improving first attempt success at IVs and PICC lines and catheters. Turns out that, you know, 1/3 of the time you get an IV or a blood draw or any kind of needle, they miss, right? And so then they back up and they try again and they miss 30% of the time again. So the idea was, what a great thing, better for the patient, better for the clinician, faster for everyone. So we created this prototype, owned by far the lion's share of the money, because we used almost exclusively grant money, you know, your taxpayer money, to do this. The price you pay there is you go a lot slower, right? You got to go a lot slower. Those grants have a lot of hair on them, what you can and can't do. But we brought that product to prototype. Then the big pivot here was, it was great. It worked when it worked. It was this 2,600 element fine pitch array. It was almost impossible to manufacture the thing at any kind of scale. So we had finally gotten to the point where we had prototypes, and our idea was, well, let's go take money from a strategic, a GE or a Philips or a Medtronic. Let's go take their money and let's get some engineering help from them to get to the next phase. We did that. They got a board seat. They were a minority investor. We did get some help from them, and then they wanted to take over the rest of the company. So I'm the CEO of this company. I say, well, hey, I was too smart for you. You can't take over this company. You have one board seat. We have 3. You own 5 or 6%. We own the rest. Let's have a vote. And I remember this day vividly. The CEO of the company who invested said, Jeff, you're going to need more money next year, right? Yes. How are you going to raise that money? Well, I'm not going to get it from you. I'm going to get it from somewhere else. And he said, during due diligence, what do you think I'm going to say when the new investor calls me and asks me, how are things going? I'm going to block you. that's a quick story, but the message here is when you take someone else's money, especially a strategic, you really get married to them. Regardless of rights of first refusal and blocking rights that you put in the agreements, you're really married. So be cautious of whose money you take. Make sure that it's congruent with that. The last, and then one more story about that. Then there was another company that we found where one of the founders didn't want to continue on. One of the founders wanted to. We had disagreements on almost everything. And what we learned, and this is huge, as you know, if you have partners and you build your operating agreements, take the time to build in an exit definition for your partners. Often it's called a buy-sell agreement, where if Freddie and I are in business together and Freddie wants to do something else, it needs to be predefined how that happens. You say, I want out, I say, I'll buy, you say, how much, I say this, and it's done. Otherwise, you spend way too much time on attorneys and burn a lot of friendships in sort of unraveling when part of the partnership wants to leave or do something different. And then the last thing, and this is, you know, if you've never read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, it's a little bit old now, but the tenets are all true. Getting the right people on the right, not just on the bus, but in the right seats of that bus. And when it's clear something's not working, whether it's a partner or an executive, the longer you wait, and I've got 2 deep scars from this, you know, friendships are stressed now. Where I basically had to fire the other partner in a bad situation because it was the right thing to do. I knew it was the right thing to do for over a year. The board members knew it was, and I just wouldn't pull the trigger on that. And it just got worse and worse over time. So when you have the wrong person on the bus or in the wrong seat, be swift to turn that C player, replace that C player with an A player. I've kind of lost track of time, but I can go on for another hour and a half. Maybe I should stop there and take some questions.
Thank you for sharing, by the way, so much of your journey. We've heard that last one a number of times from speakers, just learning how to, get rid of the wrong people, have the right people. But who had a question first? Jeff, did you have a question?
So did you end up eventually selling the ultrasonic window to Medtronic?
No, we sold it to a company called Analogic in Boston, which was a publicly traded company which ironically got bought by private equity, delisted from NASDAQ, got split into its parts. It's a great story. So private equity bought them for $1.2 billion and then spun off just their ultrasound imaging for urology to GE for $1.5 billion and still had all the rest of that asset. So our sonic window is sitting on a shelf at Analogic. It never got to market launch for 2 reasons. One is it was too expensive and too difficult to get manufacturing yield. More importantly, private equity bought the company, the whole management team, CEO changes, the whole strategy changed, and it was too nascent a market for them to worry about. Yeah. Hey, Tracy.
Hey, Jeff. I've been wanting you to speak since we started this series, so I'm really excited you're here today. My question is around tech transfer. And do you have any advice for anybody that's working with any kind of transfer, University of Virginia in particular, in negotiating the contracts for the license?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think like any negotiation, it depends on who has the power at the moment, right? So UVA has a pretty well-defined how royalties trickle down to the inventor and what the patent office, the patent office changes. Personally, I think the patent foundation here is pretty good. And in fact, when we did our exit to Analogic, they made us go back to UVA and renegotiate the royalty down a bit. And they were pretty receptive to that, sort of something's better than nothing at that exit. Even though at the end of the day, it never solved the market. So I don't know, I think it's like any negotiation, I think transparency is important. I think explain the justification for your position, to help them see why you need a certain thing. But I think the starting point with all of these is a boilerplate, pretty well defined. And, my opinion is, like anything in life, everything's negotiable. So I would never accept the template.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to have a good attorney to
Attorneys said,
to understand that contract and his obligation.
Right. Now, I've heard nightmares, like, Stanford and Hopkins, really tough to get any changes there. But I have found that company to be pretty flexible.
Hello, my question is, what is the top quality that you look for in a partner? Because of your partner difficulties, I'm wondering, obviously you want someone to be competent or more than competent at their job, but is there a particular characteristic that you look for?
You're talking about an employee or more of a strategic partner, or?
I guess more of a strategic partner.
Yeah, so product set that's congruent. Here's what I've learned is, right? I'm an engineer, so I think like an engineer, which is a problem sometimes. It's really, on partnership, it's really about commercialization, sales prowess, complementary products, and what else is in the bag there. So, for example, in my current company right now, Caretaker Medical, we make a wireless wearable that measures your blood pressure and vital signs constantly and sends it to the cloud. Giant Philips was an investor, so we started with my money. We've raised money from a number of the high net worth people here in Charlottesville. We've raised money from the West Coast. We're raising our third, Philips, the big Philips Medical invested in our last round, a couple of $1 million. And I thought they would be our channel partner as well, but they're too big. They're too gigantic, they're too distracted, so I can't get any commercial traction with them. I'm stuck in their ventures group. We're raising another round of capital right now. It's going to be led, we'll announce something probably next month. It's going to be led by one of Philips' competitors, which is really an interesting scenario. And I did that a little bit purposeful because my thought is when it comes to M&A, when it comes to time to exit, I want as broad a number of companies bidding for me as I can. If they see that Philips, although they have no special rights, they don't even have a board seat, is an investor on my cap table, that's going to scare some of them away. So if I can bring in a second strategic that's a direct competitor to them, who also has no board seat and no special rights, now I've announced to the world that I'm an eligible bachelor for all suitors who want to come to the dance, right? So it was very purposeful having them come in on this round. So the general profile of complementary strategy, like-mindedness, certainly open and honest. But the biggest challenge with these giant companies, the leadership is revolving doors, right? Not just the CEO, but whoever you're dealing with, the product management, the marketing VP, the M&A leader, they're on an 18 to 24 month cycle, and then there's a new team in here. And so, you kind of have to guess or assume that the people you'll be negotiating with 3 years from now at that strategic is probably different than the people you're talking to today.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Jeff, 2 questions. First one, thinking about the most recent venture you've got right now, already have customers or no customers yet?
We do have customers, which is another story that I'll tell in a second.
Yeah, so the first one is, can you talk a little bit about how you got that first customer or set of customers? I think that's super interesting.
Sure, so the good news, bad news is I make a different mistake at every company I build, right? So at least I'm not dumb enough to make the same one. The great idea that turned out to be maybe not so great for this company is I wanted to raise as little capital as possible. I wanted to get a minimally viable product in the market as fast as I possibly could to generate some revenue and learn, right? And I think What I didn't take into account was, that's great for a consumer product. For an FDA regulated medical device, maybe not such a great idea. So we launched a minimally viable product in 2.5 years ago. And basically hung out a shingle, published in papers, had no marketing, no sales staff, but did a lot of Google AdWords. And we had such a the uniqueness of our product is we measure blood pressure continuously. Every time your heart beats, you get a new blood pressure reading. And your blood pressure changes all the time. If you stand up, your blood pressure is going to drop 10 points and then raise 15 or 20 points. So when you get one of those spot check blood pressure and take your blood pressure at a moment in time, it's right at that minute, and then it's not anymore. And that's fine if you're healthy. But if you're, if you're getting a therapy or you're in the ICU, it's a big deal. So we just hung out a sign that said continuous, non-invasive, beat-by-beat blood pressure, and people called us, mostly researchers. Johnson & Johnson was an early customer who was doing blood pressure clinical trials and needed a decentralized wireless device. We were the only game in town at that time, and we had an early FDA approval. So we got a lot of customers just by hanging out. And what we learned was our first product wasn't good enough for hospital grade. The workflow was terrible, the battery life wasn't good, we didn't account for this error in this case. So we ended up just researchers, ketamine infusion centers, we're in 200 of those, outpatient clinics, but the big market, ICU, OR surgery, and PACU and step down in ICU, we weren't good enough. So now I'm raising new capital, here's the downside of that. So I'm thinking, hey, look, I've got 200 some customers. I've got a couple of $1 million of revenue. COVID was a big boon for us because we're remotely monitoring patients without touching them. And the overflow center at the Jacob Javits Center is an easy deployment. And that's all great until it comes time to have the valuation discussion. Because before I had revenue, the valuation of my company was infinity. It's a technology play. It hasn't launched yet. Look at the total addressable market. Look at what's possible. I'm worth, $200 million valuation on this $10 million raise. But now I have revenue. So guess what? Now I'm a multiple of revenue valuation. And if you've got $4 million, you're worth $40 million now at 10 times revenue. So the debate so yes, I generated revenue. Yes, I learned. Now I have a customer base to go and sell our next gen product to. It just got FDA approved a couple of months ago, but I'm having these knockdown, drag out discussions on valuation in this current round because they want me to be a multiple of revenue, not a multiple of future, multiple of TAM penetration. So that's the big oops there.
Makes sense.
Revenue isn't always good. I guess it's the takeaway, believe it or not.
Very good.
Thanks.
Did Samantha have a question? We probably have time for one more. It's you.
All right. So the other thing I was interested to hear about is, I'm sure you had cases where you considered it a failure. And I was wondering if before you headed into whatever opportunity that you decided to walk away from, if you kind of how you put together in your mind how much time or money you were going to invest into that opportunity before you walk away entirely.
Yeah, so maybe that's where I'm not so smart because I keep making the same mistake over and over in that regard, which I always go into these things thinking this is going to be a 3-year time horizon for me, right? We're either gonna fix it in 3 years and sell it, or we're going to get a minimally viable product or a regulatory hurdle and we're going to sell it. And part of that's my bent. I much prefer the R&D and the development and the coding and engineering than I do building and managing a sales force, which to me is much harder than the technology. So my personal bias is I'd like to exit before, when we have early commercialization. And I do think that if you look at the math, there's a sweet spot there in terms of valuation, depending on the sector that you're in. But I tend to go to these things thinking it's 3 years or more, and they end up being 4 to 5. This is year 6 for this company, right? So I'm way behind schedule.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jeff, for sharing. Right. Well, and now that you know about it, please keep coming back.
Sure.
Bring my friends. Okay, that's over here. So as we wrap up, what we're gonna move into is announcements, and how that works is you can share if there's any upcoming events that you want the group to know about, or if your company is hiring. So those are 2 things we announce, if your company's hiring, or if you know upcoming events. So we're gonna start with our partners first to share, and then we'll open the floor. So we can start with Tracy Green with CVIC, Shelter Business Innovation Council.
Good morning, everybody. I want to talk to you about one particular event, the Tech Tour, the CVIC Tech Tour, 18th annual coming up. Does anybody know what the Tech Tour is? Raise your hand if you know what the Tech Tour is. Raise your hand if you are in a technology-infused company. So you have technology, gym, Ziplity, right? So we'd love for you to participate in the Tech Tour. What is it? What is up with this microphone? We take 400-ish middle school and high school students from various school systems from as far away as they want to participate. They find their own transportation to Charlottesville. North Fork, the research park up north, part of UVA, is participating new this year. And a lot of the companies that are in the North Fork as tenants are going to be participating, but all throughout the region, we'll have technology companies that are participating. They open their door to a group of students, usually 15 or less, that come in, and you give them an educational experience, usually something that's experiential, something that they can witness, something that they can touch, and you talk to them about what it's like to work there, or what kinds of things do they need to be thinking about to be working in a company like that. We're trying to inspire the next generation of technologists and entrepreneurs. And there's sponsorship opportunities as well as hosting opportunities, but there's a small window. We need to hear from you now, because the event is on Friday, November 11th. Friday, November 11th, and Jeff, I'd love for you to participate. Jim, I'd love for your company to participate, so I'll be reaching out to you, as I think I've already sent you an email. And then you can find more information on our website, cvelinnovation.org. And we also have to sign up for our newsletter that goes to about 6,000 people weekly, which is a digest of all cool things happening in the innovation space here in the region.
Awesome, thank you, Tracy. Hannah next. So we're gonna have Hannah with CIC and SBDC to share.
Shira will be sharing for SBDC, but I will do CIC. Hi, everyone. Oh, okay. Hopefully this is, okay, this one's on there. Okay, so I'll start over. I'm Hannah Deal. I work at Community Investment Collaborative, otherwise known as CIC. There are a lot of new faces here, so I will just give you a brief overview of what CIC is. So we're a nonprofit that helps small businesses and entrepreneurs, and we do that primarily through mentoring, financing, and education. So chances are some of you heard about our 16-week workshop that we offer twice per year. It's 3 hours per week. It's very intensive, but this is really popular. We'll be celebrating our 500th graduate this fall, which is very exciting. And we are teaching entrepreneurs all about how to run a business. They're creating a business plan throughout the workshop. So if you know someone who might be interested in that, or if you're interested in it yourself, please reach out, check out our website, cicville.org. We also have a mentoring program, we have a financial management program, we have a co-working space, and we work very closely with the Small Business Development Center, which you'll be hearing about next. But really the only announcement that I have is that CIC 10 is happening November 5th, which is just a few weeks away. So this is a celebration of our 10-year anniversary, which is very exciting. We're gonna have this celebration at Ace Art Park, and it's happening from 5 to 8 on Saturday, November 5th. So you can buy tickets online. I'll give you the URL, even though no one will probably remember it, but it's cicville.org/CIC10. And if you want to reach out to me about any questions, my email is Hannah, HANNAH, @cicville.org. You can always come to me afterwards to get my email address. You can look at our website, it's on there too. So we'd love to have anyone and everyone there. We'll have lots of great food, music, and maybe some games. I'm not totally sure. That one might be up for determination, but it's gonna be a lot of fun. So hope to see you guys there. And, oh yeah, the only other thing is, if you didn't get checked in this morning, if you could stop by the table before you leave, that would be awesome. It just helps us to keep track of who was here. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shira Goldine. I'm the events coordinator with the Central Virginia SBDC. So that's CV SBDC. Don't try to remember it, it'll get stuck in the brain. First of all, if you remember a couple months ago, if you were here, I said that we were hiring a new assistant director. I'm very, very excited to let everyone know that we have our new assistant director. She is here with us today. Her name is Ariel Bretter. If you will give a wave to everyone. If you can help give her a warm welcome when you see her. Yes, very good. So we're super excited that our team is now back up to our fighting force, and we are able to serve the local small business community. And with that in mind, we are actually hiring for a second position. So we have 10 localities that we serve. So that is the city of Charlottesville and 9 surrounding counties, going as far north as Rappahannock and as far south as Nelson. So it's a huge area. So we actually have a second office location in Culpeper. So we are hiring for a second assistant director position that is primarily based in Culpeper, doing outreach and serving more of our northern territories. So if anyone is interested in that or knows anyone that might be interested, please let us know. I've got a thing up on the table that has a QR code to the job description. If you want to learn a little bit more, we had great success with me talking about this last time. We got some great people out of CV2, so I'm hopeful that this will work again. But other than that, I wanted to talk about a few things we have coming up. And like Hannah did with CIC, there's a lot of new faces. So a quick overview of SBDC. We primarily do one-on-one confidential business advising. It's an SBA program, a national network. There are 27 offices throughout the state of Virginia, and our services, I'm very low caffeinated today, I'm sorry. Our services are available free of charge to entrepreneurs. So we have expert advisors in any number of areas that can work with your small business on anything you might be struggling with or just need a little bit of extra help with. So we also offer a number of trainings and programs that are available. So we have our Founders Series, which I've talked about here a little bit before. Our next one of it is actually starting this evening. So this will be 5 weeks on Tuesdays, 4:30 to 6:30. And this is basically a business boot camp in a lot of ways that covers the foundation of either starting a new business or a good check-in if you've got an existing business. And there's a lot more information about that on our website. Or if you have any questions, please feel free to talk to me about that. And people can also earn an entrepreneurship certificate if they attend all the sessions and work with an SBDC advisor to complete a couple assignments, things like cash flow and making sure your break even is looking good. All stuff that are helpful for businesses. And we have all sorts of other events coming up. I'm not going to stand here to tell you about all of them. I will recommend that you take a look at our website. We've got all sorts of resources and information available there. And if you have any other questions, I have business cards at the back. My email is a little impossible to spell for people without writing it down, but I have business cards that I'm happy to share, and just let us know if there's anything we can do to help.
Appreciate it. Okay. I know Mary Kay told me she had a bit to announce, so let her come up and then we'll give the mic to you guys.
I'm Mary Kay Campbell, and I'm the owner of Her Storytelling, which is a strategic communication company. One of the things that I do is I am the director of TechLink. It is a brand new program. It was funded by the Go Virginia grant. We got the grant on September 14th. And so it's still very new. I don't even have business cards yet. But what it is we are partnering with the region's businesses
as well as UVA third and fourth year students. And what we're trying to do is create a bridge or connection between new graduates and companies that have entry-level tech positions. What we know is that we are a state where we're losing more people than we're gaining, and we have a significant brain drain here. So we have these amazing graduates who are leading this area. So what I'm here to ask you today is reach out to me if you have an entry-level tech position, and we're defining that very broadly. So it could be scientists, engineering, data analytics, anything like that, that you have a position that's going to be opening up either between now and June, July. And we will do our best to promote it to these students, to be in the newsletter that we're sending out, and to get it out in front of them. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary Kay. All right, so just speak up if you have, some, like, if you are hiring or you know of an events, like Mary Kay was saying. Go ahead.
But we have a webinar coming up this free and so we